Call this meeting to order at 6 o'clock. We will start with the invocation offered by Councilmember Ferguson and followed by the pledge from our resident Boy Scout Hunter DeSager.
Please bow your head as I pray. Heavenly Father, we are all thankful for our many blessings. Let us learn from yesterday, live for today, and hope for tomorrow. Grant us the intelligence to govern amid the conflicting interests and the issues of our times. Bless our efforts with clear insight, our work with clarity and accuracy, our deliberations with wisdom, and our decisions with impartiality. Lord, let Kerrville be the best place in Texas to live, love, learn, work, and worship. Help us to remember we live because of you. We thank you for life itself. Heavenly Father, guide us by your Spirit this evening. And all God's children said, Amen. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you both, and we'll start off with, I guess, the announcements from Stewart's.
Thank you very much. Thank you all for being here tonight. Was this a beautiful day or what? 85 degrees, absolutely gorgeous. I've got just a few announcements tonight, and I'm going to try and read them off the screen, and if I have a little problem, please forgive me. I keep getting distracted by Councilman Ferguson's coat there. First up, the Kerrville 2050 Comprehensive Plan. We met last night. The steering committee met yesterday, continuing to make progress on our land use plan, the thoroughfare plan, the guiding principles, and the action items. The steering committee has 2 more meetings, May 23rd and May 30th, and then we'll have public hearings on June 7th and 12th, and then we'll look for final adoption of the comprehensive plan on June 26th. All those meetings are open to the public, so please feel free to drop by and see them. And I want to thank both papers, Kerrville Daily Times and the Hill Country Community Journal. They've done a great job of covering them for us, and we sure do appreciate it. Okay. 2 weeks from today, well, not today, but 2 weeks from this coming weekend, Memorial Day weekend, the 5th annual Kerrville Festival of the Arts. And that's going to be May 26th and 27th. That's a Saturday and a Sunday. On Saturday, it's from 11 a.m. to 6 p.m. On Sunday, from noon to 6 p.m. That's right down here in downtown Kerrville. And we have more than 100 artists slated to participate in this festival this year. Do we have a final total? Or?
I'll say around 125.
125? This has been a great event every year. It's a lot of fun to come down, some great artwork. So if you get a chance to drop by, please do. We've got participating this year food-wise and wine-wise. We've got Kerrville Hills Winery, Cartwheels Catering, Pax Coffee, Azul's Lounge, Francisco's, and they'll be on site. So this will be another great event in downtown, which we really enjoy. And then in, I guess, just over a month, you can start training now for National Get Outdoors Day. If you're like me, you're going to have a lot of training to get out there and work with some of those kids. But this is Kerrville Parks and Recreation presents this event annually. It's going to be Saturday, June 9th from 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. at Louise Hayes Park. And National Get Outdoors Day promotes healthy and adventurous living in the outdoor natural spaces that the earth provides. A lot of fun and exciting things to do that day. Fitness classes, Zumba, fitness dancing, cardio kickboxing, bounce houses, dunking booths, Nerf wars, arts and crafts. Some other things, there's also going to be a craft beer run and a sand volleyball tournament. So if you have any questions about that, please call the Parks and Recreation Department. But that also looks like it's going to be a lot of fun. And I think that's it. Thank you very much.
Do we have any other announcements from anybody on council? Nope.
I don't have any.
Oh, okay. So we'll move on to the next item, which is the Visitor Citizens Forum. Do we have anybody that's, I don't show any speakers. Do we have any speaker requests? No? Okay. So I guess we just move on to the presentations, correct? I hope. So I have a few resolution proclamations that I have to read from, and the first one is commendation to Greg Shrader for serving on the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board, and I'll just meet you up here if you don't mind. Bear with me because I don't really know what I'm doing. Okay, so this is a resolution of commendation for Greg Shrader, and I'm just going to read it because I don't know what else to do. It says, whereas Greg Shrader has served as a member of the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board with the date of service beginning March 22nd, 2016, and whereas Greg Shrader has served faithfully and dutifully on said board, now therefore be it resolved by the City Council of the City of Kerrville, Kerr County, Texas, that Greg Shrader be recognized for outstanding service as a member of the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board, and that on behalf of the citizens of Kerrville, as well as for ourselves individually, we wish to express our sincere appreciation for contributions to the city and the community. I guess that's it, and here's this, and thank you. Few of these, so moving on to the next one is going to be well, actually National Police Memorial Week. So do I have somebody that comes up for this? Okay. Here we go. So I don't mess it up. I'm just going to read. Whereas in 1962, President John F. Kennedy signed a proclamation which designated May 15th as Peace Officers Memorial Day and the week in which that date falls as Police Week. And whereas to honor the service and sacrifice of those law enforcement officers killed in the line of duty while protecting communities and safeguarding democracy, and there are more than 900,000 law enforcement officers serving in communities across the United States, including the dedicated members of the Kerrville Police Department, Kerr County Sheriff's Department, Texas Department of Public Safety, and other surrounding agencies. And whereas since the first recorded death in 1791, more than 20,000 law enforcement officers in the United States have made the ultimate sacrifice and have been killed in the line of duty. And whereas the names of these dedicated public servants are engraved on the walls of the National Law Enforcement Officers Memorial in Washington, D.C., and 360 names of fallen heroes are being added in 2018. And whereas May 15th, 2018 is designated as Peace Officers Memorial Day in honor of all fallen officers and their families, and U.S. flags should be flown at half-staff. Now therefore, I, the mayor of the city of Kerrville, Texas, do formally designate May 13th through 19th, 2018 as National Police Memorial Week. Where is it?
Washington, D.C.
Yeah, do you know where in, I mean, is it in the monument area, or is it?
No, it's not in the monument area. It's in the downtown area, but it's not on the mall. It's, it's right across from the Fraternal Order of Police, building there in Washington.
Okay.
And the local observance is what time on May the 15th?
11 in the morning.
Okay, so we've got our reception at 9, our meeting at 10. We can still make it. Okay.
Next up is the Public Service Recognition Week. Do I have somebody coming up for that?
How come that?
Okay, there you go. Providing public service by stepping up. Okay. All right. Proclamation. Whereas Americans are served every single day by public servants at the federal, state, county, and city levels, these unsung heroes do the work that keeps the nation working. And whereas public service employees take not only jobs but oaths, and whereas many public servants, including police officers, firefighters, emergency medical technicians, military, and others risk their lives each day in service. Are you risking your life in day? Each day? Okay. In service to the citizens of the city of Kerrville, the people of the United States and around the world, and whereas most efficiently and with integrity, public service employees provide the diverse services demanded by the citizens of Kerrville of their municipal government daily, and whereas public service employees keep our municipality functioning and help make Kerrville exceptional, and whereas public service employees place our city and our citizen first, and whereas without these public servants, continuity would be impossible in a democracy that regularly changes leaders and elected officials. Now, therefore, I, George Baruti, I guess, Mayor Pro Tem of the city of Kerrville, do hereby announce and proclaim the week of May 6th through 12th, 2018 as Public Service Recognition Week in the city of Kerrville. And
Great.
there
Thank
you go.
Thank you.
All right.
Appreciate it.
All right.
On behalf of our 300-plus employees, I gladly accept it. Thank you.
So is our public service announcement guy really, his photo, his camera is really just his personal cell phone? Is that what we're doing?
Actually, better than
Oh, okay. All right, just checking. All right, so the next one is about Building Safety Month. Okay, here we go. I haven't met, I'm Brian Baruti. There you go. The new building official, yes?
Yes, sir.
Okay, there you go. So there's a proclamation, whereas the city of Kerrville recognizes that a component of the city's growth and strength depends on the safety and economic value of homes, buildings, and infrastructure that serve our citizens. And whereas the International Code Council and Texas are part of a diverse partnership involved in structure and building design, constructions, sales, and inspections. Each year, the International Code Council and Texas dedicate the month of May as Building Safety Month to heighten awareness for resilient structures for Texans to live, work, and play in. And whereas Building Safety Month is a public awareness campaign celebrated by jurisdictions worldwide during the month of May for the past 38 years to help individuals, families, and businesses understand what it takes to create safe and sustainable structures. And whereas Building Codes Save Lives is the theme for Building Safety Month 2018. And whereas Building Safety Month reminds the public about the critical role of our local code officials who promote safe, efficient, and livable buildings that are essential to keep America great. These guardians work year-round ensuring the safe construction of buildings and protecting us where we live, learn, work, worship, and play. And whereas codes used by professional inspectors address not only structural soundness, but also electricity, plumbing, accessibility, fire safety, et cetera, whereas each year in observance of Building Safety Month, Americans are asked to consider the commitment to improve building safety and economic investment at home and in the community, and to acknowledge the essential service provided to all of us by local and state building departments, fire prevention bureaus, and federal agencies in protecting the lives and property. Now therefore, I, the Mayor Pro Tem of City of Kerrville, do hereby proclaim the month of May 2018 as Building Safety Month. There we go. One more.
This is a record.
Okay. All right, so I have one that is put on Purple Day, so about lupus. Oh, okay. So we've got another proclamation. Whereas an estimated 1.5 million Americans suffer from lupus, the chronic inflammatory autoimmune disease that can affect various parts of the body, especially the skin, I think that means joints, blood, and kidneys. And whereas lupus can be difficult to diagnose because its symptoms are similar to those of many other illnesses and major gaps exist in understanding the causes and consequences. And whereas the Lupus Foundation of America, Lone Star Chapter, is part of a national force devoted to solving the cruel mystery of lupus while providing caring support to those who suffer from its brutal impact. And whereas the chapter rallied the Kerrville community to wear the color purple and to further unify the support for those living with the disease, and whereas awareness is vital in raising funds for research for those affected by lupus, and it is our responsibility as a community to advocate on their behalf and to further encourage educational programs so everyone affected by lupus can have an improved quality of life. Now therefore, I, the Mayor Pro Tem of the City of Kerrville, do hereby proclaim May 18th, 2018 as Put on Purple Day. And it says throughout the City of Kerrville, and urge all citizens to support the cause of raising awareness of lupus so that we can have a world with no lupus. So we'll give that to you. Okay, gotta get myself back together up here. So now that brings us to the consent agenda. Do I have anybody that wishes to pull anything off the consent agenda?
I'd like to remove item 4A.
Okay. So we remove 4A, so it's no longer on the consent agenda, and we move to 4A, the minutes of the City Council regular meetings held March 27th, April 10th, and April 24th, and the City Council workshop held on April 17th. What would you?
Oh, I would like to add the comment beep beep Zoom to the minutes.
I already told you I'm not gonna put it in there.
Well, it'll be on next meeting.
Which minutes was that? Which meeting was that in?
It was
It
in-
was one with Acme.
yeah.
Yeah, was that?
Wiley, the Coyote, that story.
Oh, yeah. Well, I remember the whole event. I'm just trying to figure out which meeting it is so that we can get it recorded as to what we really said here.
I'm trying to find it.
Is there a motion?
That's what we're looking for. He's got to make a motion to modify the one meeting, and then we get it voted on, and then.
You don't have to put everything in the minutes.
I know, but this is a council
That's a
member's
big one.
motion,
Yeah.
so.
I think it was I'll make a motion. I
Okay.
move to add the comment beep beep Zoom to the minutes of April 24th, 2018.
I believe it was the item where we actually
the
approved
item?
the Singing Winds Roads. We approved the bid, I believe.
To Acme, that's correct.
Yeah. So we have a motion. Do we have a second? Oh, I'll second that. And so we'd like to we've got a motion and a second, so we need to vote. Yeah, there you go. Oh, I'm surprised. It passed. Okay, so moving on to the next item is just a presentation. I say just, I'm sorry, I didn't mean it that way. We have a presentation. Oh, excuse me.
We passed the amendment, but don't we have to go back and pass the whole package?
That was. Oh, yeah. I guess we do, because we really only voted to approve that one meeting with that amendment. So, do I have a second motion on item 4A?
Somebody.
I think Warren moved and I seconded.
Okay, there we go. There we go. What? Yes, okay. So that passes, so all the meeting minutes have been passed, and now we get to move on to item 5A, which is a presentation by the retail coach regarding a retail study for Kerrville.
Yes, Mayor Pro Tem, I'll introduce this item. So this is considered an early action item for Kerrville 2050. It is one of the items that's spelled out in the Economic Development Action Plan, and it is something that I had talked to you all about commissioning, and so very quickly we had our consultant produce some really great information that he'll review with you today. So we have with us at the podium Aaron Farmer, and Aaron is with Retail Coach, who works with cities nationwide and is very familiar with the retail market and all the developers and brokers in that market. And I've actually worked with this firm in another city, and they did very good work for us. So today it's basically just a presentation of the results. There are some recommendations that you'll find at the end, and then those recommendations we'll further consider at another time, either as part of the budget process or in discussions with you all going forward. But tonight is just basically to hear the remarks and the information, and then certainly ask any questions that you all might have. So with that introduction, Aaron, take it from here.
Awesome. Well, and thank you for the introduction. Council, it's great to be in front of you today. Appreciate the opportunity to work with you in this process. Just so you know a little bit about my background real quick. Aaron Farmer, Senior Vice President with the Retail Coach. I've been with the Retail Coach now for over 10 years, working throughout the state. I'm out of Austin, live in Dripping Springs, so I'm somewhat local, know this market very well. But want to talk to you today about that market analysis we put together. So really, since about February, our team has been in Kerrville on multiple occasions, really trying to get a feel for the individual submarkets in the community, whether it's downtown, whether it's the Interstate 10 corridor, maybe it's one of the other corridors there. We really wanted to get a feel for what is the opportunity that exists here from a retail perspective. So you'll see on the screen right now, we ran what's called a cell phone analysis, and it's a little bit scary to think about, but it's from the perspective that we use it, it's very good data. Instead of relying on radials and drive times to computer models, basically, to tell where people are coming from to shop and eat here in Kerrville, we actually use cell phone data. So it's not being sold, it's not being sent to anyone, but it's used to understand who's shopping here on a regular basis. So throughout the last couple of months, and this data that we have actually goes back a full 12 months. So from today going back 12 months is what we're looking at here. The blue dots on the map represent where your customers are coming from. Right now, on the screen here, we're using those people that visited at least 10 times. So we're tracking people that visited at least 10 times. Typically, when you visit a community at least 10 times, some of them on the map are 365 days. This gives us a good feel of where your customers are coming from. And from a retailer, from a developer, from a broker standpoint, understanding how large your retail trade area is key. I will tell you that's one of the hardest things for site selectors and brokers to do for Kerrville is because you have such a large retail trade area. It goes out significantly to the west, a good distance to the west. You can't just drop a computer model down around Kerrville and that tell the story. So we use that cell phone analysis to determine the trade area that you'll see here on the screen. And right now we're looking at the primary retail trade area. So you'll see the blue area there. It's not a computer model, it's not a radial. This is where you're getting about 80% of your consumers that are shopping and eating here. And again, as a retail site selector, as a broker, this is the type of information we want to see. So there is 100,001 people that live within that trade area. So 101,327 people that are shopping and eating in Kerrville on a regular basis. So obviously larger than the city limits. Again, as a retailer developer, I need to know where those people are coming from. So the blue map up there, it's custom drawn. It's a polygon. It's not a 20-minute drive time, a 20-minute radial, or a 20-mile radial. That just does not tell the story. Well, a couple of things I wanted to point out. The average household income within that area is $71,000. So not the strongest incomes, but well above the state average as it relates to average household income. So $71,000 there, and then a little bit older of a population. So we put together really hundreds of pages of demographics on this trade area. So everything that you would want to know about the consumers that are shopping here, their age, what their incomes are, net worth. We're going to talk about net worth here in a minute. Educational attainment, race distribution, that kind of information that a retailer, a developer, or you looking to plan for the community want to know. We have that information. So going forward, the retail trade area is what's important. That's what retailers, developers, and brokers are going to pay attention to. We also looked at a secondary retail trade area. In the secondary retail trade area, you can see it's a larger area. These are the consumers that are shopping here. Maybe not every single day. These are those other 20 to 30% of consumers that are shopping in Kerrville. So extends out to the west a good distance. Sonora, I believe, to the west is kind of the cutoff there, along I-10 into kind of the Bernie area. Again, not coming on every single day, but making certain occasions. Your average household incomes went up a step, about $5,000 to $76,000. and then your age distribution went down just a little bit. The overall age group did. So again, primary, 70 to 80% of consumers. Secondary, 20 to 30%, that other 20 to 30% of consumers. And then obviously because of I-10, because of the other traffic corridors you have here, you're pulling people from outside of these trade areas as well. But again, great information to have. Now I wanted to point out that I mentioned that I think it's hard for a lot of these site selectors, a lot of these retailers, developers to really understand Kerrville. That's why you're missing some of the typical retailers and restaurants that you would think you would see in a community this size. Is your average household incomes, which is one of the main kind of traits that retailers key off of, does not tell the story here. Large retirement population here in the region, here in the community, your net worth is really what these retailers and what these developers need to be keen on. I wanted to just kind of point this out to you. I've got Kerrville on the screen, I've got the primary retail trade area, and then I've got the secondary retail trade area. Average net worth is, and median net worth are one of the things that I think is going to help sell you, help get retailers, developers, and restaurants interested. But those numbers are significant. If you look at the average net worth of the secondary trade area, we're over 900,000. So that's significant, well above the state average. You look at primary retail trade area, 874,000. So, and then looking at just Kerrville alone, just the community limits, you're above 800,000, 818, 425. So going forward, one of the things that like I said, I think retailers and developers have overlooked is that net worth. So very strong here in the community, and as we get out in the trade area, very strong as well. So I will tell you, the net worth was not an easy number to come about. That we had to go and really look at incomes. We had to look at assets of people in the trade area, home values, those sort of things. All of that to come up with the net worth. But this will be a powerful number and a good number to use going forward. We also wanted to get a feel, once we had determined the trade area, for what is the opportunity from a retail sales standpoint. Now, we use a phrase in our business called leakage, retail leakage. And what that tells us is money that's leaving Kerrville and being spent outside of the community. So maybe it's something you can't find here. Maybe it's a store that's not here that you're leaving for. So I've got an example up here. But if in a community, if there was a clothing store's leakage of $7 million, what that would tell us is, hey, there's an opportunity to go after and try to get additional clothing stores in the community. So this is an example. This is not Kerrville. The next screen that we're going to look at is Kerrville. But what we did is we ran a gap analysis or leakage analysis on both of the trade areas. Right now, we're going to focus on the primary trade area. We looked at about 75 categories. So everything from sporting goods to casual sit-down restaurants to you name it, there's a category they fit into here. The first column that you'll see on the screen here represents the NAICS code, or the industry classification code. So if you're a retail business, there's a category that you fit into in here. Again, I've named out some of them: sporting goods, fast food. There's a category you fit into. We then looked at potential sales. Now, potential sales are within the trade area. So remember the primary trade area, we've got 101,000 in the primary trade area. That's what we're focused on from a potential sales standpoint. And what we did is we looked at what does the average Texan spend on each of these categories. So what do they spend on sporting goods? What do they spend on fast food restaurants? And then based off of your income, we have an index multiplier that we use. And we came up with specific amounts for these categories. So obviously people are going to spend more at grocery stores. And there's more opportunity at a grocery store than maybe there is at an auto parts store or something like that. So we look at potential sales, and then the third column over is actual sales. We wanted to see what are the actual sales here in Kerrville. So the difference between potential sales and actual sales gives us either a surplus or a leakage. And you've got leakages in a number of the different categories. Total, if you look at it, total leakage is $832 million. So that's a tremendous amount of money that's leaving on it, and that's on a yearly basis. That's on a 12-month basis. I will tell you, we're not looking, and I don't think you should as a council, look to bring in $832 million. There's always going to be leakage, but I think we can set some realistic goals. I think we can set some goals of maybe 10%. Let's reduce this leakage by 10%. Let's reduce it by 20% over time. So I'm not going to run through all of the categories there for you, but I wanted to introduce it to you. I know just from some of the surveying and some of the things that we did as we were coming up with this data, there were a couple of categories that people talked about as far as there being a tremendous amount of leakage or tremendous amount of money. And it kind of rings true when you actually look at the categories. One of those categories was sporting goods. One of the several people that we talked to said, hey, we think there's an opportunity for additional sporting goods here. Well, when you look at it, there's about $18 million that's leaving on a yearly basis, whether that's online or that's at somewhere like Academy or something like that, that's leaving on a regular basis. Another category that really stood out to me was casual sit-down restaurants or full-service restaurants. That was another one that we heard is, hey, there's just some full-service kind of casual sit-down restaurants we'd like to see in the community, and that leakage was about 44 million, and that's over a 12-month basis. So what that tells us is there's opportunity. So don't necessarily look at leakage as a bad thing, especially if you're looking to or hoping to recruit new businesses. Look at that as opportunity. So I'm not going to run through all the categories here, but I wanted to at least point it out and explain to you how we come up with that information. But the leakage analysis is really one of the first tools that a site selector, a developer, or retailer looks at to help them understand what opportunities exist. So what we've done is we've developed a couple of marketing pieces to go with this so that if somebody comes in to City Hall and is interested in opening a business or comes to the community, we've got some front and back flyers, kind of some more information that we put together on Kerrville, really highlighting this information. Retail submarkets. One of the things about Kerrville is you're a large community in a sense that you have multiple submarkets in the community. And when I say submarkets, I'm talking about really retail markets within the overall Kerrville market. So a good example of downtown. From a retail perspective, we would look at downtown as its own submarket. What's going to locate in downtown is obviously going to be different than what locates out, let's say, by Walmart or what locates out by the mall. Downtown Kerrville, in our opinion, just after taking a brief look at it, is going to continue to be driven by local and regional retailers and restaurants. We've seen kind of a gradual gravitation of national retailers moving away from downtowns. You probably have noticed that here, or if you travel around the world, you probably noticed that. Recommendation would be to consider developing a regional retail and restaurant recruitment campaign specific to downtown. Maybe look at those businesses that are within the region that maybe have 1, 2, 3 locations about possibly locating in downtown. And then continue to work with the downtown businesses to stay open later. I know that's a difficult subject a lot of times in communities, but 75% or so of all retail sales happen between 7 p.m. and 11 p.m. and on the weekends. So wanted to kind of point that out about the downtown area. Interstate 10, that's another corridor, another submarket that we're talking about here. Little retail, not much retail development has occurred there along that corridor. However, there's an opportunity to establish and develop a regional retail development in that area. I think that's key. Just as we've seen national retailers move out of downtowns, you've seen national retailers and regional retail developments focus along interstates. Think about that, again, where you travel. But that's an opportunity. That's a corridor to focus on for potential retail development. We also looked at Sidney Baker Street South. That's the area, obviously, that's anchored by River Hills Mall and H-E-B. This is a regional shopping area for many people in the region. I was at the mall just a couple of weeks ago. We were in town for an event with one of our friends and ran over to the mall. They have an arcade there. My wife shopped at Belk for just a little bit, took the kids over there. That's a great area. But some focus is going to have to be given to that area in the near future. If you pay any attention to kind of what the retail trends are, retailers are starting to kind of gravitate away from malls and more into what we call these lifestyle centers, mixed-use type development. So that's going to need to be a focus there. But there's some possible future development sites in that area and also redevelopment sites that could take place. And then lastly, 2 other submarkets I want to hit on really quick. Sidney Baker Street North. So this corridor is kind of a connecting route is the way I look at it. It kind of connects Interstate 10 and a lot of those visitors to your other submarkets. You've got, it's stacked with a number of fast food restaurants on that corridor, several casual sit-down restaurants, whether it's Cracker Barrel or some of the others that are located there. There's an opportunity for development and redevelopment and infill development along that corridor. I've been in town for a couple hours today, just kind of refamiliarizing myself with these corridors. And there's some sites on there that are not serving their highest and best use from a economic development perspective. With Home Depot and Lowe's located in that submarket, there is an opportunity for additional regional retail development. So just looking with its kind of connection there, especially near the Interstate 10 connection there, for additional retail development to occur there. And then lastly, Junction Highway. Junction Highway submarket, it's the highest traffic counts in Kerrville, which is, to me, was a little bit surprising as we started to look at this analysis, just looking at the different traffic counts there. To have your largest traffic counts there, it just surprised me a little bit with Interstate 10 and all of the other kind of connecting routes there. But that's a good thing. That's one of the reasons why you've got, you know, Walmart's there. That's the reason why you've got some of your other restaurants and retailers, Starbucks. That's why you have some of the others that have located there, Chick-fil-A as well. So that's another area. You're going to still see some complementary retail and restaurant development take place along that corridor. So I wanted to point that out as we did this analysis, and we're not hitting on all phases of the analysis today. Just as kind of a summary, I wanted to mention that we took a hard look at each of these submarkets, spent a lot of time in the submarkets, even went in and talked to some managers and even some owners of the businesses in each of these submarkets to really get a feel for the community. I've got a kind of a screenshot up here. I won't spend too much time on this, but these are up-to-date traffic counts. And this just goes to kind of point out, you've got some high traffic counts, Junction Highway, and even Sidney Baker South. You've got some really high traffic counts there. So that's one of the things that are going to need to be a focus there. So I wanted to emphasize that. And then I also wanted to talk to you about a SWOT analysis that we put together. I'm going to, obviously a SWOT analysis, we look at strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. A couple of the strengths here real quick. I mentioned this already leading up to this, but the high net worth individuals is something to really build on. There's money in the community. There's money in the trade area. That's important. You're already a retail destination. So you've got Belk, you've got Lowe's, you've got Home Depot, you've got a number of different stores that are here. That's obviously going to continue to be in your favor, you being a regional destination. Another good strength that you have is there's really no competition to the west. So for many people, I know the population drops off significantly as you get out to the west, but you don't have any competition to the west. So that serves as a strength here. Interstate 10, obviously a strength. Anytime you have an interstate running through your community, the high traffic counts that you have, and a couple of these categories are strengths. And then lastly, from a strength standpoint, your primary and secondary retail trade area. There's certain benchmarks that retailers, restaurants, and developers look at. One of those benchmarks is 100,000 people. They want to see at least 100,000 in a trade area before they'll consider doing something in a market. You've surpassed that both in the primary and the secondary trade area. So some of the weaknesses that we see, and I'm going to get a little bit closer here for just a second. The average age is one of the weaknesses. Typically, in what we see in retail trends right now, retailers are flocking to younger populations. They know that the millennials, the younger population, they spend more money. They're spending more money at retail, restaurants. I just saw a study that said the younger generation is spending more money going out to eat than they are buying groceries. So the older population there, I know that lends to having some of the higher net worths and those sort of things. But at the same token, a little bit older of an population can be a negative there. Couple other things. You're relatively close to some shopping destinations in kind of the San Antonio area, just outside of the San Antonio area. A lot of retailers and developers that I've already talked to believe they already own this market. Believe that people are leaving here and I realize I'm preaching to the choir, but people are leaving here on a regular basis to go, shop kind of west, kind of northwest of San Antonio. So that's competition. That's one of your weaknesses there and something to pay attention to. Population density to the west. I mentioned the population drops off as you head west on I-10. Population density is important to a lot of retailers, so that kind of that drop off that you see when you go to the west can be a weakness as well. And then from what we can tell, there's been virtually no retail recruitment, specific retail recruitment process or anything that's taken place by Kerrville. or by the community, maybe, or at least not much. So when we started talking to these retailers and restaurants, just trying to get a feel for the market, a lot of them know Kerrville, they've been through there, but they really haven't looked at sites. So that's something to look at. But from an opportunity standpoint, Kerrville has the opportunity for additional retail development. I can tell you that the analysis that we've already done, shows that there is a significant amount of opportunity here in Kerrville. So that's key. The retail gap analysis, like I said, points to that. There is an opportunity right now to get ahead of some of your competing communities along the Interstate 10 corridor. You know, I really feel like with some of these retailers, you know, coming out of San Antonio on Interstate 10, the first to have some of these retailers and restaurants are going to be the ones that have that location. They're not going to do, some of them, especially the larger retailers, are not going to do multiple locations along that corridor. So you do have the opportunity to kind of get ahead of your communities right now, competing communities. And then with little to no recruitment having taken place from a retail standpoint in the past, you have that opportunity right now to start aggressive marketing, to really get out there quickly and do those that sort of thing. And then I did want to point out too, there's an opportunity to focus on retailer recruitment, but also developer recruitment. A lot of what we're seeing in the state of Texas right now is developer driven. That's where a developer is coming in, buying a tract of land, putting a shopping center. Maybe it's a mixed use development. Maybe it's you know, just a strip center. There's an opportunity to go after developers and also retailers at the same time. Threats kind of goes back to what we talked about, weaknesses, but there is a threat is retail development happening in other communities along Interstate 10. That's a threat. Again, some of these retailers are not going to locate multiple stores. They might just locate one if your competing community won't locate here. So that's really that SWOT analysis. I wanted to encourage you to take a harder look at that as we go forward, but I wanted to point out that. And then just a couple more slides here, but I wanted to talk about a few recommendations that we have just from our team being in the community. I mentioned this, but many retail site selectors are unaware of Kerrville, especially if they're from outside of Texas. And that's what we're seeing a lot right now. Could be a site selector that's out of Illinois. Could be a site selector or someone working for a retailer that's out of Colorado, unfamiliar with Kerrville. Continue marketing and recruitment to retailers, brokers, and developers. Continue to focus on pitching Kerrville as a retail trade area population. The retail trade area populations are what really sells Kerrville on its opportunity from a retail perspective. Again, trade area populations over 100,000 are going to look good. The first question we get from any retailer or restaurant, doesn't matter what community we're in or what community we're recruiting for, first question we get is what sites are available. So it could be a site for a fast food restaurant that maybe they need 0.75 acres, or it could be a site for a casual sit-down restaurant they need 2 acres, or it could be a site for a larger developer that needs 10 acres to put in a larger development. Recommend that you put together a database of sites, so that when a retailer, when a restaurant, when a developer does come in, hey, here are the 5 10-acre sites that fit. Here are the 5 2-acre sites that fit what you're looking for. That will be key going forward. I also want to recommend that Kerrville thinks about becoming members of the International Council of Shopping Centers and also exhibiting or at least attending those events. The International Council of Shopping Centers, if you're not familiar with it, it is an opportunity for cities, retailers, developers, and site selectors to get together and make deals. I don't know if Kerrville's attended that in the past, but as a community, you can become a member of ICSC for $100. We're going to talk here at the end. There's a couple of conferences that are coming up throughout the year here in Texas that we think are worth attending. And then just a couple more recommendations here. To many potential consumers, the only view they have of Kerrville is the Interstate 10 corridor. So wanted to encourage you to continue investing in wayfinding and marketing efforts to help drive customers to other areas of Kerrville. That's going to be important. I will tell you, we go to New Mexico every year. We've done it for 15, 20 years, and we drive right by here. And until about 3 or 4 years ago, that was all I knew of Kerrville. And for a lot of people, that's what they know of Kerrville. So wayfinding, getting people to these other submarkets is going to continue to be key. and then downtown Kerrville, this just kind of reemphasizes what we talked about earlier. Continue to recruit possible entertainment users and eating establishments that stay open late. Most of, or a lot of the downtown businesses are not open in the evenings. We talked about that. And then I think this is important, but it's very important to identify one entity in the community that focuses on retail recruitment. If I'm a retailer, I'm a site selector, it's a lot easier to deal with one entity or at least one point of contact when I'm looking at a community. So I wanted to make that recommendation. Take a long-term approach as it relates to retail, as it relates to development projects. The typical development project right now from a retail perspective takes anywhere from 12 to 36 months. So it's not an overnight thing where retail development comes in. It's about 12 to 36 months. Typically, a retailer will put a property under contract, or a developer will put a property under contract. Maybe they'll have a 60 or 90-day feasibility period where they can go out and try to recruit businesses in, do all the environmental testing and all of that needs to take place. Then that actual retail development takes place after that. So it can take a while. And then I wanted to mention, consider developing a Kerrville retail-specific website, or at least on your current city website, economic development website, is to make sure there's some retail information on there. First place that site selectors go before they're coming to talk to anybody at the city, they're going to your website. And I will tell you, there's an opportunity now with this data that we've put together to put that data on the website, because there is some good data on there, but all of the retail data that someone would be interested in is not out there. So wanted to mention that. And then I mentioned those upcoming conferences that I recommend you attend. Retail Live. It's August of this year. That happens in Austin. It's a one-day event. I'm a big fan of Retail Live. It's set up like a trade show, but there's an opportunity to get in front of retailers, get in front of brokers, developers, get the word out about Kerrville to some of these that aren't familiar with it. And then the ICSC Red River States Conference, and this is it used to take place in San Antonio. Last few years, they moved it up to the Dallas-Fort Worth area. It's taking place in Fort Worth. A lot of your competing communities are at these conferences. You're competing not only with communities here in your region, but you're competing with communities throughout the state. Typically, what we're seeing right now is if it's a retailer, they'll say, we're going to open 10 stores in the state of Texas. And what are you doing to make sure Kerrville is on the top of that list? Attending these conferences will help with that. So I'll just reemphasize to take a long-term approach. As I mentioned, 12 to 36 months is the typical retail timeline right now. But I just kind of really hit on the high points here. But there's a lot of good data, literally hundreds of pages of data that can be used now. I would, again, focus on that net worth. I think that's one of the things that retailers that maybe restaurants that aren't here is they're paying attention to some of the average household incomes. They're paying attention to some of that. But that net worth really stands out, as well as the trade area population. So that was kind of a brief overview of the analysis that we've done. We go into much more detail in the actual reports, but wanted to at least give you that summary.
Does anybody have any questions?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
When you talk about traditional malls
Sure.
becoming a thing of the past, what's taking their place, or is it all going to online?
It's a mixture of both, to be honest with you. I'll hit on the online part really quick. Online sales, obviously, it doesn't matter. Fox News, CNN, news, whatever you read, it sounds like retail is dying a lot of times. I've heard it referred to as a retail apocalypse. That's not necessarily the case. We're expecting online sales to level out at some point. So retail, I think part of what's happening with the malls is, yes, online sales is leading to part of that, but brick and mortar sales are not going away. Amazon just recently opened, or it's about to open, a bookstore in the Domain in Austin. They're opening some other brick and mortar stores. So I think that the number one online retailer to open up stores like that, I think that's a good indication that retail is, at least from a brick and mortar standpoint, is not going away. But what you're seeing with the malls is we're hearing it called demalling. So basically, you're your retailers are going into more of what we call lifestyle centers, more shopping center type developments, and less into that actual mall setting. So you're seeing more of the outside kind of.
Is there an example in Kerrville that you could point me to
Not
get the
Kerrville.
idea of the difference?
Not in Kerrville.
Not currently, not in
No,
Kerrville.
no.
You could look at maybe like a La Cantera from a big standpoint. That's obviously a very large standpoint. A good example would be, I don't know if you're ever in Dripping Springs, but we just opened a new shopping center in Dripping Springs. It's a mixture of a movie theater, restaurants, retail. It's very walkable, and that's kind of what we're talking about here. So more of the town center type developments is seeing less in the malls, more of the town center type developments.
Excuse me, are we allowed to ask questions?
Yes, hang on one second though. Did you have more? Yeah.
I probably do, but that's okay.
Okay,
I
well,
don't mind stopping in the middle.
yeah, I mean, if you're gonna ask questions, if you could just come up to the podium and ask. Yeah.
I didn't realize I was here.
Yeah, it has to do with the recording. Otherwise,
Come on, Kimber. You can do it.
Hi, my name's Kimber Falkenberg. I'm a citizen here of Kerrville. Aaron, right? Okay. So my question is kind of about the online shopping. So people of my age who are, middle-aged, but have spending and buying power, right? We're probably doing a lot of shopping online, but we are interested in specialty stores. We're not really interested in the big box homogenous shopping experience.
Sure.
So can you tell us about how, as a city, we can make sure we're paying attention to who we're marketing to?
Yeah, definitely.
Because, for years, people talk about Target, Target, Target.
Sure.
I'm not interested in Target.
Yeah.
I was 10 years ago.
Yeah.
I don't care about Target today.
Gotcha.
So can you talk about that?
Yeah, definitely.
Thank you.
Awesome, thanks. So big box, the good thing about big box retail, if you're not interested in big box, what we're seeing right now is a trend to shrink the big boxes. So a lot of your big box retailers are shrinking the size of their stores. Kind of the next step in this process, or one of the things that we have already put together is what we call a void analysis. And the void analysis goes in, helps us identify who's missing. Okay, what types of retailer, what specific retailers, what specific restaurants should be here based on what your incomes are, based on your net worth, based on the age groups of the people here. So the next step in this process possibly would be to put together a prospect list, understand what you're looking to recruit here, those sort of things. But big box is kind of becoming a thing of the past, and when we're seeing that, where you're seeing the stores shrink. Target, for example, just I heard a lot of people say they would love to see a Target here. Target's only opening 20 stores this year, I think is what I most recently read, and they're focused on their city Target concepts. They're focused on their basically it's a more smaller urban type concept. They're going to a lot of college communities right now. So I think from a big box standpoint, you'll still see some of the big box retailers, but it's more turning into kind of smaller, more intimate type stores. So I think from what you were saying, I think it bodes well for Kerrville in the future if that's where things are headed.
George?
step up.
John Miller, I'm a resident of Kerrville. Main thing I wanted to know is just, is this report available to the general public right now?
No, not all of it.
Not all of it? Okay, when would you expect the report to be available?
That's a good question. Probably. We're working on some things right now. Actually, it's not even finalized yet. So as soon as kind of we get things finalized with some new numbers that we have coming in, we'll kind of make that, I guess, kind of keep everybody updated.
Yeah, John, probably within the next week or so.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
soon.
Yes.
Yeah.
One more.
Neil Powers, Kerrville resident. Quick question for you, Aaron, which is, when you look at the leakage and all the different categories, is there any attempt to determine how much of that leakage is going to another brick and mortar store somewhere versus how much of that leakage is going online by category?
Yes, so to answer that real quick, yes, we're able to kind of look at where that leakage goes. We're not able to tell exactly to a dollar amount of how much is leaving, but we can get a good feel really on a percentage basis on how much is going brick and mortar versus how much is going to online. So that'll help you as you build a strategy for understanding what opportunities you are. You can look at those percentages, and it'll help you understand too. I mean, in that leakage analysis, there's a category for bookstores. And if you look at the year, I've done this in a number of communities, and we do it every year in some communities. And every year, potential for bookstores goes down. So we kind of look at this leakage analysis to say, look, these are the top 20 categories that you actually have an opportunity, realistic opportunity to actually bring that type of business in, or expand from within if there's somebody that can do that. So that's how we can look at that. Yeah.
Come on up.
Bruce Drakey, 615 Earl Garrett here in Kerrville. Man, this is great information, and I just wanted to ask a couple of questions and make a couple of comments. And one, you talked earlier about the younger crowd, and we saw that very recently. The younger crowd is really starting to get active in Kerrville, and I think that's something that we need to focus on, because that's something that over time, as you've pointed out, we've seen over and over again that high average age. But that's part of the magic of Kerrville as well. There are three kinds of people that live here. There are people that have grown up here and been here their entire life and never wanted to leave. And there are people who are older who retired here because they wanted to leave metropolitan areas. And then there's folks like myself and Kimber.
Bruce,
who left.
Who left, I'm sorry. Yeah, it's going to be
I'm sorry.
quiet.
Who left metropolitan areas because they wanted to leave them. And they came here because of the uniqueness of Kerrville. Sure. And finding that balance is what's really important. Bringing enough folks along the interstate, but recognizing, as you pointed out, the busiest corner in Kerr County is at Harper Road and 27. More traffic there than there is going by on the interstate. The other thing I wanted to mention is that we had started a database. Our previous director of the EDC, Brian O'Connor, started working with Lois. You're familiar with Lois? And that process had been started to create that one database and such. And so we have some of that, and Walt may be able to work with that, or there may be a different direction we want to go. But that's something that maybe the new council can work on again, that we kind of abandoned. And then the other thing is wayfinding is something we've been talking about for years, and I think that's really important, because the magic of Kerrville, the reason those three groups come here is because they don't want what they see in Houston or Austin or Dallas or Los Angeles. They come to Kerrville because it's different. You don't have popos in Houston. Right. You don't have grape juice, and I'm picking on restaurants, but that's why people come here. That's why they move here, that's why they visit here, and that's why they never left.
Right. Absolutely. Well, I think you're right, too. I think looking at the different age groups, and you'll notice that as you look through the reports, is we didn't just focus on one age group, older population or younger population. We looked at all of the different age groups, and based off of that, it's going to help identify, determine what the opportunities are, what types of development, what types of retailers, restaurants, and you're lucky that you do have a mix. If you actually look at the breakdown of the ages, now we look at average and we look at median age, and it's 50 years old. But if you look at the breakdown, it's distributed, somewhat evenly through some of those categories. So that's going to be the key. I think you're right. So.
Come on up.
Appreciate it. My name is Kamran Farhoudi. I've been a resident of Kerrville since 1983. I have grown up here and I love this town. And I just wanted to I do agree with Kimber that I love the uniqueness of Kerrville. But I'll be really honest with you, you don't have children, do you, Kimber? No, I don't. From a parental perspective, Kerrville doesn't have a lot of shopping for clothes for children. You have Walmart, or you have extremely expensive specialty shops. And so when as a parent, I'm like, well, I need clothes for the kids, so we'll just go to San Antonio. I think a lot of opportunity is families that are going to San Antonio, because I've got to go there if I want anything other than Walmart clothes for my kids. If I want an Old Navy is one of the strongest retailers right now, the Gap, and they operate in these types of market. And I think having those options for families to be able to shop will keep a lot of dollars here. We won't go to San Antonio to shop for clothes, and while we're there, eat, and then go to a movie. We'll shop for clothes here, eat, and then go to a movie. I would much rather do that. I mean, parent perspective.
Hey, just real quick, I think again, you're not going to be able to solve the leakage problem totally, but a good example is the children's clothes. That's actually a category in the gap analysis, and you'll see there's a multi-million-dollar leakage there. So there is an opportunity to kind of keep people shopping here, maybe keep them from making those what I call those event trips and those event retail trips where, hey, we're gonna, like you talked about, we're gonna go buy clothes and then we're gonna see a movie, then we're gonna grocery shop, and then we're gonna take our ice chest with us and then bring it back to Kerrville. So those are some things to look at. But overall, looking at this, I think the key takeaways here, tremendous amount of opportunity from Kerrville. I think you've been overlooked in the past. Yes, ma'am.
I have another question.
Go ahead.
When you talk about the communities that are our competition on I-10, are you talking about Bernie?
That would be one of them, yes.
What else?
Just really, not
Nothing
even
going
necessarily,
west,
not even
Arlington Junction.
really, from a retail standpoint, from a competition standpoint, you really don't have to worry about the west. It's
No.
really heading.
It's
Yeah, and I mean that's one of them, but really not just the communities, but the different areas that you're seeing
Oh.
develop around there. That's what you need to, you really need to
Maybe
focus
comfort.
on. Yeah, absolutely.
Well, I got a couple questions on himself. So some of the trends that are in the details of that report, you talked about the average net worth. When you look at the median net worth, that seems like a pretty telling number to me,
Yeah.
as well as the median age and median salaries. So our community is, the median age is 47. The median net worth is 97,000, and the median salary is 45,000 household. So we're talking about leakage, but 50% of our population is probably not doing a lot of leakage buying because they're not doing a lot of buying, period. So that coupled with something else that showed up that kind of struck me as, you hear about all the population growth in the big cities and not in the others. Texas population as a whole seems to be growing at a steady rate, around 20% or something like that.
Right.
But our local and our retail trade population is actually growing, the growth is declining since 2000. So to the point of, you guys are reporting us as growing at a rate of like 3% or 4%.
Yeah.
So if people are moving moving into our retail trade center less frequently than the state, are we kind of bucking a trend by trying to make this a center?
Yeah, I see where you're going there. I think you have to look at, when you look at those trend numbers, you
Yeah.
have to look at the recession, because when the recession hit, you didn't see much growth. But now, if you look at the 2018 and then we're looking out to 2023, you're actually showing an increase. So you had a little bit of a decrease in kind of the region whenever the recession kind of hit, and there wasn't much.
Well, we're not actually seeing the decrease. The numbers you guys are presenting to us were a growth rate.
Just not as fast.
Yeah, but the growth rate in that 2000 to 2010 was like 14%.
Yeah.
And in the 2018 to 2023 that you guys are projecting
Yeah.
is less than 4%.
Right.
So the trend is that it's growing less rapidly. And if our net worth or our money in town is all over in the aged population,
Yeah.
which you've already stated is
Yeah.
spending less, then where are we actually drawing the buyers from
So I
in
think
our
you have to
retail
look at
center?
I think you have to look at a couple of things, because just because your incomes in certain categories here are lower, doesn't mean they're spending less money, if that makes sense. If you look at, and I don't have it here, but
Yeah.
if you look at the different age groups, they're actually, even though their incomes are less, their retail spending is more. And then you get out to the little bit older of a population, and they're saving their money a little bit more.
Yeah.
So just because you see the average incomes being a little bit lower in certain
Yeah.
areas, they're still spending money. And I didn't have a slide up here, but when we look in this report, there's a retail spending potential category, and it actually, or spending potential report, it actually shows that your retail spending, even if you look at sales tax dollars and those sort of things, is actually going up. But I see what you're saying. It's not, the growth rate is not tremendous,
Yeah.
as we're looking at the next 5 years. But from a retail perspective, before the retail coach, I worked with the retailer. We just wanted to see steady, kind of consistent growth. So as long as you're showing growth, that's a positive. Where we would be scared is if you're actually seeing a decrease in population.
Right, but I keep, the age thing, I keep hearing that the biggest growth age group is like
Sure.
25 to 45 or something like that, okay.
Yeah.
But apparently this population, the median age is still increasing. So that means that 20-year group is growing rapidly, but the older 50 years is growing faster. So, you know, it's kind of a mixed bag is all I'm saying. And
Yeah, no,
so,
it makes sense.
and I don't want to, I mean, I'm just asking kind of those questions as far as what we look at. And then as far as how we're going to compete with the other towns that, you know, we're trying to get ahead of the competition. What types of incentives are we likely to have to throw out there?
So first off, I'll start off by saying I'm not a huge fan of incentives. Our firm is not a huge fan of incentives as it relates to retail, unless it's going to have a large impact on your community.
Okay.
A large impact would be, you know, a new development coming in that's going to spur other development, bring other retail in. It's going to, you know, significantly increase your retail sales tax dollars and those sort of things. What we're seeing right now from an incentive standpoint, because again, you're competing with communities that are giving incentives.
Right.
Sales tax abatements and rebates are very popular right now, where basically you'll rebate a percentage of the sales tax that a retailer or development brings in for a set amount of time. Is it 3 years? Is it 5 years? Is it 10 years? Those seem to be the most kind of, those are the ones we're seeing happen the most right now from an incentive standpoint. Also popular right now is what we call the P3 arrangements, so the public-private partnerships. So you'll actually see like a public entity, a city, partner with the developer to do, you're seeing that a lot right now with like convention center type developments.
Oh, okay.
You're also seeing that happen a lot with shopping center developments too on the larger scale. You know, maybe helping with infrastructure, making sure a site's ready to go, those sort of things those are probably the most popular incentives we're seeing right now. But again, if we were consulting with Kerrville from an incentive standpoint, an impact analysis would need to be done on what's the total impact on the development. You know, we would look at what have other communities given to this retailer, what have other communities given to this developer, to be able to get some, compare apples to apples, if that makes sense.
Okay, yeah, okay.
What kind of shopping center would be ideal at I-10 and 16?
I mean, it's hard to say right now. I mean,
We're going to hold you to this answer, by the way, so just so you know.
I'm just trying to get a realistic
I
picture
think
going in my mind.
When I say regional development, I think regional retailers could be successful here. You know, not
For
a retailer.
example.
I don't want to name any specific, especially I don't want to name any specific retailers right now. But somebody that's going to draw people from outside of Kerrville to shop there either. I think you've got some restaurants, some casual sit-down restaurants that could come here and be successful. So I think it would make sense. And again, don't hold me to this, but some type of development that has regional retailers as part of it, and then also some of those national, regional restaurants kind of mixed in there. So you've got kind of a mixture of both of those to kind of serve as a regional development, basically.
And would it include housing or theaters or something like that?
That's the trend right now, to be honest with you. I mean, especially right now, the movie theater business, entertainment business is doing really well. The trend right now is to have
a bowling alley.
That's the trend right now, is to have kind of that mixed use type development. So it wouldn't surprise me to see that type of development proposed by a developer here in the community. But I think just a mixed use development.
Do new ones look more like strips of stores or more like a box shape of stores? Or a courtyard?
A lot of when I say mixed use development, kind of a lot of it's that courtyard. It's more like a walkable type shopping center is what we're seeing. Look at the Stone Oak area, north of San Antonio, the Stone Oak area. You see a lot of that mixed use kind of walkable type development. Not saying that's going to happen here tomorrow, but that's the type of development. That's kind of where it's headed. I mentioned that you might look up Belterra Village. That's a new shopping center that's in Dripping Springs. It's set up more of like a courtyard style kind of lifestyle center development. That seems to be the trend we're seeing right now.
Any other questions? No? Okay, well, I guess thank you for the report.
Awesome. Thank you all. Appreciate it.
And I guess we're on to city manager's report, which...
I don't have a report tonight, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, so any items for future agendas? Anybody? No? All right, well, I guess that takes us to the end, right?
All right, no executive session.
Okay. So we'll adjourn this meeting at 7:09.